The race for 2019 MVP has been quite the ride. Considering the storylines that took place, unexpected success, and the odd lack of LeBron James, the debate for 2019 MVP turned interesting. Ultimately, it came down to Paul George, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and James Harden. Paul George is realistically just outside of actually contending for the award, but he still had the best season of his career, averaging 28.1 points, 8.2 rebounds, and 4.1 assists, while being a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. He was a real contender earlier in the year, but OKC dipped to 6th in the West, and his individual performance went down slightly, especially since his reported shoulder injury. He was still playing at a really high level, but his case just isn't as strong as the other two. So, for the Beard and the Greek Freak, let's get a side-by-side comparison. Giannis played 32.8 minutes per game, averaging 27.7 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 6 assists on 58% from the field and 26% from 3. The Bucks had the best record in the NBA, being the only team with 60 wins at 60-22. James Harden played 36.8 minutes a game, averaging an insane 36.1 points, adding 6.6 rebounds and 7.5 assists on 44% from the field and 37% from 3 on 13 attempts per game. The Rockets have a record of 53-29. Both players are having amazing seasons with performances unheard of. They also both have an obvious flaw in their game. Harden's is defense and Giannis can't shoot. I think Harden's is more of a detriment though, because he can get exposed repeatedly, he can get attacked, where tagging off of Giannis sometimes just gave him a head of steam to get to the basket. Still, Harden was obviously much better than Giannis offensively. Looking at the basic numbers is insufficient in regards to determining the MVP, so we need to dive a little deeper and consider a few points. First of all, what determines who should win MVP? What's the definition for it? Is it the best player in the league? No, because a lot of all-time greats such as LeBron would have many more MVPs. Is it the best player on the best team? No, not always, because Russell Westbrook just won in 2017. A lot of people say it changes every year, but I don't agree. I just think that it's none of these definitions and it's just not that simple. We usually know who the MVP is by the end of the season, so that means that it's not just random. I would argue, while there's no easy way to define the award, since sometimes it's unpredictable, it seems to go to the player who had the most successful season in terms of a combination of individual and team accomplishments with a historical context in mind. It's a broad definition, but it's the best qualitative explanation for the MVP award. For example, Westbrook won 2017 MVP because he averaged a triple-double for the first time since Oscar Robertson in the 60s, while bringing his team to the 6th seed in the West despite many people thinking they wouldn't even make the playoffs. That was very significant historically. The next season, he also averaged a triple-double, but he wasn't considered for MVP because his team finished below expectations. Although Westbrook wasn't entirely at fault, these expectations matter. Again, this season he averaged triple-double, but is not nearly in MVP conversations because he's not even the best player on his team, and the record is not near the top. And we've seen him do it a bunch of times, so it's not even as historical. Well, this season alone isn't as historical. James Harden won the award in 2018 because his team finished with the best record in the league while he carried them offensively. With that in mind, let's go a bit deeper into each player's situation. Let's look at the Milwaukee Bucks and their stats with Giannis on the floor versus off the floor. With their star, the Bucks have an offensive rating of 116.9 and a defensive rating of 104.5 for a net rating of 12.4. Without him, their offense goes down 5.7 points per 100 possessions to 111, and their defense also worsens, going down to 108.3 for a net rating of 2.7. This means that with Giannis on the court, the Bucks are really good per 100 possessions compared to when he's on the bench. Still, when he's on the bench, they are an above average team. For the Rockets, with Harden on the floor, their offensive rating is 118.2 and their defensive rating is 111.9. When he's off the floor, their offensive rating goes down to 111 and their defensive rating improves to 109.4. Their net rating with Harden on the floor is 6.3 and decreases to 1.6 without him. Based on these numbers, Giannis is more valuable per 100 possessions in terms of score difference than James Harden. The Greek Freak is also a positive influence on defense, whereas Harden is not a plus defender. Still, net rating is not on its own a reliable stat to determine who's the better player for the team for a few reasons. For example, James Harden has played more minutes for his team this season, so one can argue he provides more value since he played more. So, to figure out who's more valuable to their team, taking into account minutes, we can do some math to figure out how many points they scored while their player was on the court and while their player was off the court. James Harden has played 2,868 minutes and been off the court for 1,103, meaning he's on the court 72% of the time. Giannis is only on the court 60% of the time at 2,360 minutes and off the court 1,550. With this info, we can determine the total value each player provided, as opposed to value per possessions, minutes, or per game. I wasn't able to find on-off totals for a team as a whole, so let's just do the math. It might be a little complicated, but this won't take long, so just bear with me. If you don't understand, it won't matter. I'll just have the numbers at the end. We can find the total points scored by team given minutes, pace, and offensive rating, which are all in Basketball Reference. Let's first do this for the Rockets with James Harden on the court. We'll divide total minutes 2868 by 48 because pace is measured in possessions per 48 minutes. This gives us about 60, which means James Harden played 60 segments of 48 minutes. The Rockets with James Harden have a pace of 96.6 possessions per 48 minutes, so we'll take the number we have, 60, and multiply that by 96.6, which gives us the total amount of possessions, 5,771. Now we need points per possession, which we can get by dividing offensive rating by 100, since offensive rating is a measure of points per 100 possessions, and 118.2 divided by 100 is 1.18. Now multiply possessions by points per possession and we have total points, which is 6,822. And this number isn't exact, give or take a few points due to rounding, because how the decimals work. If you didn't follow the process for it, that's okay. Just know that they've scored that number of points with Harden on the court. We can repeat this process a few more times to get total points scored for and against the Rockets with and without Harden, and do the same thing for the Bucks. Let's skip the math and just get the totals. So for the Rockets with Harden on the court, they scored 6,822 points. With him off the court, they scored 2,520 points. The Rockets' opponents with Harden on the court have scored 6,452 points. Rockets' opponents with Harden off the court have scored 2,469. Bucks with Giannis on, 5,903. Bucks with Giannis off, 3,782. Bucks opponents with Giannis on, 5,256. Bucks opponents with Giannis off, 3,705. This is useful because it factors in playing time. This shows that James Harden has provided more raw value, just playing more, scoring more for his team. However, when Giannis on the floor, the total differences between Bucks points and opponents points is greater than that of the Rockets versus that of their opponents. This means that Giannis has a better net rating and a better net total. This is important because it shows that Giannis has given his team more total cushion, more lead than James Harden, despite the fact that he plays less. However, it's not that simple because it doesn't account for the fact that team rosters and rotations are different. It's impossible to compare these two situations just from numbers. Maybe one of these players has more minutes with better players on the team, while one plays more with the bench. One team may be much deeper, which skews the on-off numbers. I'm not specifically referring to either of these players or their teams and disrespecting them, but for example, if one stars a bunch of guys from your local 24-hour fitness on their bench, it inflates the net rating compared to a guy who has a really deep team. I'd argue Giannis has the better team surrounding him, which affects his net rating, but it is also the reason he doesn't have to play as many minutes. An incredibly well done video by MDJ talks about the flaws in defensive analytics and dives deeper in these concepts, where these numbers are skewed by who they play with and other things. This video only talks about defensive numbers, but the general concepts apply to what I'm talking about right now, and any use of advanced numbers without context. But it's not totally useless. Because of all this, we can take the information and combine it with the aforementioned definition of MVP that I created, or that I determined. Both have eye-popping numbers with a slight edge to James Harden in that department, especially considering he's having one of the most historic scoring seasons in NBA history, but his defense is not good, while Giannis is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. To be fair, Harden's defense is bad because he has to carry so much offensively and play a lot of minutes, but it doesn't change the fact that he's a minus defender. He also isn't as bad as people like to say he is, or as bad as he was in previous years. He's improved a lot, especially in the post. James Harden also has more of a hero storyline as his team started poorly with injuries to key players like Chris Paul and Clint Capella, and he put the team on his back to bring them to a very good record, along the way having moments like the game against the Warriors where he willed them to victory, all the way up to that amazing game winner. With that being said, Giannis has exceeded expectations by far and has arguably been the most dominant player in the league. He has also had great moments, such as his matchup with the 76ers where he blocked Joel Embiid like 5 times on his way to 45 points and 13 rebounds, and he led his team to overachieve a lot. For reference, let's look at ESPN summer predictions. The Rockets finished 4 games under expected as they were predicted to win 57 games. The Bucks finished way above their prediction. They're expected to win 47 games. The fact that they finished the season with 60 is insane given that people thought they were going to be way worse this season. This matters as it's partially the reason James Harden and Russell Westbrook won MVP in their respective years. They finished the season beyond what was expected of them, given the fact that the basic stats are very close, but one player has better advanced stats and a better team record while going beyond expectations, and is also the better all-around player with less prominent weakness. It looks like the MVP belongs to the Greek Freak. If someone has Harden as their MVP, I can't be upset with that because the guy has been like a 2K my career dude. But I gave my opinion on what the definition for MVP is according to the winners in recent years. Someone else with a different definition could very well have Harden as the winner instead. If you disagree with my opinion, let me know in the comments below and we can respectfully talk about it. Thank you. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing and liking the video to see more like this in the future.